Hi folks, first off I would like to apologize to anyone who left a comment on the previous video about the other one about drugs. I decided not to read or respond to any of the comments on that video because that video I made for myself. It was a public declaration of an intent and that's what it was for, but I'm not offering it up for discussion, and I think it's best if I don't engage in any sort of discussion about it. I'm just stating for a fact what I intend to do and why. And that's all there is to it for me. If you want to discuss with each other in the comments section, that's fine with me. I don't care. But I'm not going to watch it. But as of this video, I'll start looking at the discussions below the video again. So, what I would like to talk to you about is Dogen's weird view of time. Let me preface this by saying this might sound like a kind of dry philosophical discussion of, philosophy. And it actually comes a lot from reading this book, which is a very dry discussion of Dogen's philosophy. However, to me, and I think to Hee-Jean Kim, who wrote the book, this isn't just dry philosophy. There is a reason to look at things this way. And it kind of goes back to what I said a couple of videos ago about the fact that I decided to cut myself off from all sources of news. I got rid of the news app on my phone and the ones on my computer, and I reset YouTube so it doesn't give me news stories, and I'm just not looking at it. And the reason for that is whenever you take in a lot of information, as I was doing at the beginning of this pandemic stuff, when you take in a lot of information from sources like that, what you're getting in addition to the information is this kind of wall of confusion. And I'm not being politically sectarian here either. Whether it's Fox News and Breitbart and Daily Wire you're looking at, or whether you're looking at CNN and MSNBC and Huffington Post, it's all coming from the same place philosophically, which is this heavily materialistic, mechanistic view of the universe and of humanity's place in it. And even though the sort of right-wing sites like Fox and, Daily Wire, I don't know how Breitbart is, they claim a kind of religious affiliation, but their religion is still the religion of materialism. It's religious understanding as framed by a materialistic worldview. So it's still the same damn thing. The reason for getting rid of that stuff is to kind of, at least for me, to reset my brain back into the more realistic philosophy that I was able to pick up from Dogen, from Nishijima Roshi, from Tim McCarthy, my first teacher, from Kobenchino via Tim usually, from other people who had a more realistic outlook on the world. And Dogen's view of time fits in with that because his view of time kind of encompasses everything about his worldview. So let's get into this, and it's going to be short and far too short to make sense of most of this, but I hope that you'll use this as a reason to kind of dig deeper. So here goes. I'm going to start off with a quote that appears on page 158 of Eihei Dogen, Mystical Realist. I believe these translations are all Hee-Jean Kim's own translations, but they're pretty close to the Nishijima cross translations, I think, so I'm not too worried about nuances. I think they're close enough. Dogen says, "You should understand that even though there was a moon last night, the moon you see tonight is not last night's moon. Tonight's moon, whether of the earlier, middle, or later phase, is likewise nothing but the moon of tonight. Although they say there is the moon, it is neither new nor old, because the moon inherits the moon." Now, Dogen is not some crazy 800 years ago primitive Japanese guy who sees the moon tonight and thinks that there's a new moon popping up every night, that's not the same one that passed over last night. Not exactly. He understands the conventional idea that the moon is the same moon that's been up there for, millions of years, or probably in Dogen's view it would have been millions of years because the Buddhists had a very long view of time, unlike, Western religions, which tended to take this kind of weird short view of things being created 5,000 years ago and so on. The Buddhists saw things as happening over millions and billions of years. What he's saying, though, is that every moment is a new moment. Every second is a new second. And how many seconds are there? Let's talk about that. Dogen says, "You should take note that the human body in this life is formed temporarily as a result of the combination of the 4 elements and the 5 skandhas. There are always the 8 kinds of suffering: birth, old age, sickness, death, separation from the beloved, union with the hated, frustrations, and those sufferings caused by clinging to the 5 skandhas." That's what the 8 sufferings are. Not to mention the fact that life arises and perishes instantaneously from moment to moment and does not abide at all. And the fact that there are 65 setsunas born and annihilated in one tanji. Now these are units of time that the Buddhists talk about, and we're going to get into that. Yet the ordinary person does not realize this because of his or her own ignorance. Although 1 day and 1 night are comprised of, now let's see if I can get this right, 6,400,099,980 setsunas. So setsuna is way less than a second. I forget how many. There's a certain amount of setsunas in the snap of a finger. And the 5 skandhas appear and disappear each time, each of those 6 billion whatever times. He or she does not know these facts. Pity those who are altogether unaware of their own births and deaths. So the idea that you get from watching a news source, for example, just to bring it back to that, is that every person is born once and dies once, and there's a coronavirus out there and it's going to kill us all, so we should be terrified of death. And that's what they're selling you on the news. But if you take this Buddhist view, birth and death, birth and death, birth and death, birth and death, much faster than I can snap my fingers, are going on all the time, each one replaced by another. So what's really going on? Well, let's get into that. Dogen says, "You should examine the fact that myself unfolds itself and makes the universe of it, and that all things and events of this universe are temporal particularities. Just as particular times are unobstructed by one another, so are particular things and events unobstructed. For this reason, the minds of enlightenment awaken at the same time. The times of enlightenment awaken in the same mind. The same holds true of practice and enlightenment. Myself unfolds itself and beholds it. Such is the reason of the time of myself." So that one's pretty hairy. That is explaining what the entire universe is. The entire universe is myself seeing myself arrayed out in a kind of an arrangement that appears to be time. But time, as we understand it, is mostly an illusion. It moves in various ways. Let's talk about that one. Existence time, he equates existence and time, has the characteristic of passage. It passes from today to tomorrow, from today to yesterday, from yesterday to today, from today to today, and from tomorrow to tomorrow. Dynamism is the characteristic of time. While the times of ancient and modern do not pile up, nor do they line up. And then he mentions some famous Zen masters. Let's just call them, I'll try to pronounce them in Chinese. Qing Huan is time, Huang Po is also time. Cheng Xi and Shi Tao are times as well. So you are time, I am time, Ziggy the dog is time, everybody is time. Because the self and others are already times, discrete from each other, practice and enlightenment are different times. Also, to enter the mire and to go into the water to guide sentient beings is likewise time. So everything is time, and everyone is time, and action is time. And about this he says, "The sun, the moon, and the stars exist by virtue of creative activities. The earth and the empty sky exist because of activities. Our body-mind and its environment are dependent on activities. So are the 4 elements and the 5 skandhas. Although activity is not what worldly people are likely to care for, it is every human's only true refuge. It should be examined and understood thoroughly that dependent origination is activity, because activity does not originate dependently." He also says this really weird thing. "Is any existence or any world excluded from this present moment? So we think that the present moment is, well, it's all there is. But we sort of believe that the present moment is a series of things that happen. But this present moment is intimately connected with everything that came before. So if it's like those old time travel stories, like The Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury. I don't know if you've read that. A guy goes on a time machine to hunt a dinosaur, and he has to kill the dinosaur at exactly the right time, or else it will change history. He has to kill it exactly when it would have died anyway. But in the story, he accidentally steps on a butterfly, and because he steps on a butterfly, all of history has changed. Well, that's a fun science fiction way to look at things, but it also kind of points up the fact that if everything didn't happen exactly as it happened, then this being now would not exist. If my parents hadn't hooked up, one night sometime after high school, I would not be here. It had to depend on a certain time and a certain moment. And these things are all interconnected. So everything that happened before is interconnected with my existence at the present moment. And it doesn't even matter. The explosion of a supernova produced the atoms in my body. So this is really connected up stuff. But what does it all mean? Here's what Dogen says. The present time under consideration is each individual's realized now. Even though it makes you think of the past, present, and future, and tens of thousands of other times, they are the present time, the realized now. A person's duty always lies in the present. So the most important thing we have is what we do now, and maybe that's what all this is coming to. The things we do now are deeply significant, even if they seem completely insignificant. Even wiping your nose or cleaning the floors or I don't know what you're doing, making a YouTube video. This is all supremely important stuff. And the idea that, bringing it back to this news thing that I was talking about, that there are newsworthy events and newsworthy people, and if the newsworthy people say newsworthy things, then that's what we should focus on and go, the newsworthy person said that he's taking the drug that he shouldn't take, and freak out about that. Doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters. What really matters is what you're doing right now with this moment that you have to do something with, and what I'm doing right now with this moment that I have to do something with. So that's a lot of stuff, and I hope that made some degree of sense to you. If you want more of this stuff, or none of this stuff, or any stuff, you can send me a donation via PayPal and Patreon. The links are below on my YouTube page, and then I'll put a little link thing for those of you looking in other places, and you can find out where to donate. I really appreciate your donations. That's how I survive. That's how I'm making it through this pandemic. Thankfully, most people are still donating, but I know times are tough, so don't donate to me if that's a tough thing for you to do. Just donate to me if it's an easy thing for you to do, and I'll be fine. But I always got to remind people to do that, and I appreciate all your support and help. It's really, really great. And that's it. I'll see you another time, another place. If such exists, I don't know, but we'll talk later, I think. Bye.